let's talk about education a little bit. Uh, do you feel that right now the public school systems and do you think that they're funded adequately?
I think right now they are not funded adequately because of the abruptness of the lack of funding. I think it would be fair to say there's fat in the system that could be pared down, but it doesn't justify the abrupt cutting of the programs. If, you know, the current administration has been there for six years now. If they believed there was fat in that, I think appropriate care would have been to aggressively pursue that agenda earlier. And I think the school systems could pare down certain aspects of their system and make it more efficient. However, I really believe in the long haul we actually need more influx of money into education if we want it to function the way it needs to, and if we want to be able to compete with the other states and the world. So,
where do you think some areas are that more money could be brought into?
well, the best way, which will also then save money for the other aspects of education, is to put it into early childhood education. If we would invest money there now and aggressively pursue building up a early childhood education program, that program will assist us in saving money down the road at all the other phases of education, plus other parts of our society. The reality is kids who are in poverty have a situation where they enter kindergarten with approximately an 800-word vocabulary, while people from more middle class or upper area enter with a 10 to 15,000 word vocabulary. That discrepancy, that disparity is virtually impossible to make up, either for the kid or for the educators. Both of them are frustrated in that process because the child is starting at too much of a disadvantage. And the governor's proposal to simply keep them back until they read efficiently by third grade is just ridiculous, in my opinion. That is a completely backwards way to try to address this. It's so much easier if we just reach them when they're 3 and 4 years old, give them appropriate education tools so that they come into kindergarten on par with others. What we have then is, starting at the very first, that kindergarten teacher doesn't have to spend so much time on remedial, trying to catch these kids up that are behind, and can start actually teaching all the people on an even plane. Everybody benefits by that. The kids that are able to start out at the appropriate level, and those kids who are already there. Because right now, those kids who are coming in at a good level are being under-taught because the teacher has to spend so much time. If we can bring those kids up to speed, we can save all that cost of what we call remedial education. The energy that teachers have to go into, and I'll tell you that right now the system is a real drag because of this disparity, and it's a drag not only on our ability to educate those kids, but on the other kids and on the teachers. The teachers can work their hearts out, and they're never going to make up that deficiency that's there. And if we would just help there, our education system would go leaps and bounds just on that alone. Plus, long-term studies, numerous of them, have shown that investment in early childhood education cuts down the number of teen pregnancies, the number of juvenile delinquencies, the number of high school dropouts. Many more kids get a college degree, many more go on to a secondary college. A significantly high percentage never go on public assistance. If we want to do away with our welfare system, the best way we can do that is invest in early childhood education. And not only is it the moral thing to do, but it is the economically best thing to do. Right now, we can use early childhood as economic development. It is proven economic development. Definitely the long term, for every dollar you spend, you're going to save $8 to $13, depending on whose studies you look at. But right now, we could use it as economic development. We could use stimulus money. We could use money we're spending on having teachers who are unemployed to invest in them. I think right now we could work within the system of daycares or other centers that are out there and use money to supplement them so that they can increase their capacities and expand upon them and start building this. But the first thing we need to do is establish an oversight group to actually develop an intentional plan to get early childhood education going in a meaningful way. And with that, then we can expand from there to other aspects of our education. But that alone will have leaps and bounds improvement on our education. And the good thing about it is it snowballs. You help this kid out, the whole classroom gets helped out, the teachers get helped out. So the whole education system is moving better. And then when these kids that we have helped out of poverty are parents, they do a better job of educating their kids. And so it is each time our education system is getting better. We're limiting the need to do social welfare programs. We have just been way behind on that.
How do you feel about charter schools?
Well, I don't like anything dragging money away from public schools. We can't afford it. However, charter schools within the body of public schools, the systems like the Tolles Academy, trying to do things and trying to use schools, I would call them more like the magnet programs that we use right now. How Weiser Park is a magnet program. Having those schools have a slightly different teaching model or even maybe a dramatically different teaching model under the supervision of the public school system, I would prefer. Right now, if a kid signs up for charter school, the money from the state is allocated to that school. After a fairly early date, those numbers are fixed. If that kid drops out of charter school and goes back into public school has to accept him, but they don't get the money back. And so there are some ways in which the charter programs can harm the public system, not only just draining money away, but then actually draining even more away through that. But I'm always open to ideas of how best to educate kids. And some of the charter programs, some of the magnet programs are good and some aren't so good. And I think that it can all be put on the table, but we need to make sure public education is funded, because whenever we take money away from public education, we hurt those who are least able to stand it. Wealthy people are always going to be able to get their kids in schools, but poor aren't. Poor need public education, and they're the ones who need public education the most. So I'm never in favor of draining money away from that.
Okay. Looking at secondary education, college, university, what's your ideas there? I mean, the costs are a little out of control, it seems like, saddling students with debt.
Yeah, again, I think there have been times of prosperity that allowed all of us in our private lives or in our businesses to maybe put on layers of fat that aren't needed. It's always a good process to reevaluate and see, are we really needing this? Can we cut this? Can we be a little leaner? And so I think sometimes the difficult times, hopefully not this bad that we're having right now, but times to reevaluate our budgets are good. And so I think it's really good right now that the colleges should do that. I know that one thing that was hit on recently were the pay of college professors, and that Indiana gave their people, I think it was a 3% increase. I can't remember what it was, but they gave raises to their professors, and that caught a lot of flack by not only some other Indiana alumni, but people in general. But their explanation was that comparing to where other institutions or other places these educators could be, they had to be competitive. And they pointed out how those professors actually bring in more revenue than they're being paid because of maybe grants or studies, and like over at Purdue. You might have an engineering professor studying some new design that's going to be very applicable within the construction industry or something, and the process, the grants that are helping them design that are bringing monies into the school, bringing attention to the school, and if that person wasn't paid adequately, there are other schools that would take them and pay them better, and our school system would start suffering as a result of that. We have an extremely good education program in Indiana. Our state schools are excellent. We have tremendous private schools in our state, and we have to keep them competitive. That is so important to our state. It's so important to any state. But for economic development, if you really want companies to come, you've got to show them that you care about education, that their kids can get educated within your community, but also that they can get graduates from quality institutions who maybe want to stay in Indiana. So that, it's tough to know. I'm not on the board of trustees of either of the schools, so I haven't been privy to their budgets to see where I might cut. I think it is important that they cut where they can, and when they have to give raises, where they believe they have to give raises, they should also look to see, is there an area that maybe we don't need to focus on anymore, or it isn't being good for our school system. That's true in all of our lives. When we add an expense, we ought to, when we add an expense, we ought to look for a way to save the money elsewhere. So.